What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another Courtside Podcast here on the Basketball Network. I'm Caleb. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Connor. Connor, college basketball is back. We got the NBA going. How are we doing?
Doing fantastic. We are finally in the heart of the sports world. College football, NFL, college basketball, and the NBA all going on. Just freaking exciting time, man. I think you can say I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, and there has been great games in every single league. I've been tuning in and honestly maybe watching a little too much, but we love it. So before we jump into today's episode, real quick, just want to say if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, make sure to give it a 5-star rating. We really appreciate it. But Connor, let's jump into our transition 3.
Yeah, so first up, I would argue this might be the biggest news to come over the past week. Joel Embiid suspended for 3 games. He got into an altercation with a reporter. He shoved the person after his deceased brother was brought up. And this also comes right when he finally is cleared to play. But with that suspension, he'll be making his debut on Tuesday against the Knicks, which is also the start of the NBA Cup. Caleb, what are your thoughts on this suspension?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I understand where Embiid's coming from. Just, he mentioned you can talk about my play, but don't talk about my family type thing. So it's tough to see that. And yeah, obviously coming right at the heel where he was able to start playing, but excited to see that he gets his debut against the New York Knicks. It'll be one of the premier games, and especially in time for the start of the NBA Cup. So 76ers desperately need him back and couldn't come at a better time.
Yeah, definitely a good time for him to come back. But unfortunately, on the flip side for the 76ers, which brings us to our second point here, is Tyrese Maxey is going to be out multiple weeks with a hamstring injury that he got last night against the Clippers. This also means that 76ers, currently 1-6, are going to be without one of their star players for a few weeks again. So, Caleb, how do you think this is going to impact the 76ers?
This is going to impact the 76ers in a huge way. I mean, Tyrese Maxey has been the leading scorer and basically carrying this team. Although they've only had one win, the only reason they've been competitive in any of these games so far is because of Tyrese Maxey with the injuries to Paul George and Joel Embiid. We know that they just got Paul George back. So hopefully that's going to help them a little bit. But obviously with Tyrese Maxey being out a couple of weeks, this team is struggling. They're going to need their big 3 to be back soon.
Yeah, no, for sure. But speaking of maybe, 76ers being 1-6 is a little unexpected. A team that is also unexpected record at 7-1 right now are the Warriors. They visited the Celtics last night, and Celtics fans were not too happy to see Steve Kerr. He received a resounding boo across the entire arena. Which was in response to Steve Kerr not playing Tatum during the 2024 Olympics. Caleb, I know you're a big Warriors guy, big Steve Kerr fan. Gotta hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think I get both sides, right? Like, obviously, as a fan of the Celtics, especially coming off a championship last year and then going into the Olympics and seeing Jason Tatum basically never touch the floor, you're going to be a little upset, especially when you got the likes of Jrue Holiday and Derek White, also from the Celtics, playing a lot more than Jason Tatum, who most fans think is their best player. But at the end of the day, Steve Kerr and his rotations were what he thought was the best for Team USA, and they won the gold medal.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He wasn't there to make friends. He was there to win a gold medal for the United States, and they did. So I understand the reaction from the Celtics fans, but at the end of the day, Jason Tatum still got his gold medal. And, it seemed like there for a little bit on Tuesday night, on Wednesday night, he was on a mission to try and, beat the Warriors, obviously. But didn't seem to work too far because the Warriors actually ended up coming out with the win, going to 7-1. And that brings us to our first point of the episode. And the question that we have and we'll be talking about is, can Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors sustain the success? So currently the Warriors are technically the number 3 seed, but they're actually tied in first place in the West with that 7-1 record. Took down the defending champs, the Boston Celtics, last night, and have actually been undefeated as Steph Curry was out for a while. And he obviously just returned against the Celtics and played great. There's been some surprise players as well from the Warriors. And so, Connor, I want to hear your take. Who do you think has been the biggest surprise for the Warriors, and what's your thoughts on their early season success so far?
Yeah, just real quick before I go into that, dude, Steph Curry lit up a Celtics team that was supposed to have one of the best defensive guard fronts out there, and Derek White and Drew Holiday, and Steph Curry lit them up. But obviously, you asked about who I think has been the most impressive, which, not a Warriors fan, was not very high on the Warriors. So high praise coming here, but I'm going to go with Buddy Hield. He is playing out of his mind, and I would say it's the best basketball of his entire career. So just to give you some stats, right? In 26 minutes per game, he's averaging 21.1 points, 4.5 rebounds, about 2 assists, 1 steal. But get this, he's shooting 51.7% from the field and 50.7% from 3 on 9 attempts. With that volume, I feel like you very rarely see that high a percentage. Obviously, Buddy Hield, I feel like, has hit bumps with the coaches everywhere he's gone. I think that was showed especially at the Kings, where him and the coach literally were yelling at each other while he was in the game, hitting shots. But I think Kerr is probably the perfect coach for him, just because Kerr has coached Curry and Klay Thompson, and obviously he coached Jordan Poole, who are all shooters, offensive-minded players. And Kerr obviously knows how to get players open shots, as we've seen the past 10 years. And Buddy Hield has just excelled in this role. So for me, I think he's been the biggest surprise. I was expecting maybe like 15 points a game from him. But obviously he has exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations.
Agreed. I think Buddy Hield currently, and obviously we're only for the Warriors 8 games into the season, he might be the front runner for both most improved player and sixth man of the year so far. Just playing absolutely insane. If you look on Basketball Reference, they actually have him in the top 10 of MVP voting right now, which is nowhere near where he should be, but it's a pretty funny stat. But he has been the key and the reason the Warriors really were able to stay afloat and go through that undefeated record while Steph Curry was out of the game and out due to injury on the ankle. He's just been playing lights out. I mean, I've watched every single Golden State game so far, and it's literally just been, honestly, the best case scenario with losing Klay Thompson, right? Like, you lose Klay Thompson, you lose that shooting, and Klay was getting a little older, and obviously it's bittersweet, but to bring someone in like Buddy that can just fill that role and has played at such an amazing level so far has been super key for the Golden State Warriors and how their success has been in the early season. There's also been a lot of other players. I feel like this team has been really deep this season. They have been able to go far into the bench and get production out of just about everyone. And if you're not playing well that night, they switch over to another guy, which has been very key. One thing I do think we should talk about is the strength of schedule so far for the Golden State Warriors. Even as a Warriors fan, I'm really excited about it being 7-1. I will say we have played some of the worst teams in the league so far. Like, we've gotten wins over Portland, Utah, Washington, New Orleans when they've kind of been banged up. So our best wins have been Houston and then this Boston win. And even with the Boston win, Jaylen Brown was out and Kristaps Porzingis. So not going to take a lot away from my Warriors. Obviously, they deserve it, and you just play who you got. But they have a gauntlet coming up, right? They just played Boston, then they play at Cleveland, at Oklahoma City, and then versus the Dallas Mavericks. They're 1-0 so far in those 4 games, but we'll see how the next 3 games pan out.
They got 3 of the best, at least I would say the 3 best teams in the league, in a row right there, which is tough. But so obviously we talked about exceeding expectations and whatnot, but I would argue, and maybe this is just how Kerr is playing currently, there's a couple players on here that I would say have kind of not met expectations. And we can talk about them separately. I'm just going to say them both right now, but it's going to be Kuminga and Moses Moody. So just some background. They were both up for their rookie extensions, I believe. Moses Moody got that 3-year deal. Kuminga did not get an extension. They never could, agree on terms. And so I just kind of did some stat digging and just some efficiency. So Kuminga's numbers are down across the board, and he's playing less efficiently than he did last season, and he's playing 3 fewer minutes. And then Moses Moody, he's doing the same. They've risen a little bit, but he's playing the same exact minutes, 17 minutes a game. But I think these were two guys that people were really expecting, and I know me and you were both expecting them to kind of take a leap, but I feel like they haven't yet.
I agree. I'll start with Jonathan Kuminga. He was actually my pick for being most improved player.
I think I took Moody, so
exactly. I think the biggest thing with Kuminga is where he was at in the lineup, especially to start the season. So Golden State Warriors to start the season, their starting lineup was Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, and Trace Jackson Davis. The only shooter on the court at that point was Steph Curry. Andrew Wiggins was playing the 2 and Jonathan Kuminga was playing the 3. And when we saw Jonathan Kuminga excel last season, it was really when he was at the 4 slot and Draymond Green was at the 5, or Draymond Green was off the court and you had a center with Trace Jackson Davis. There was just not enough spacing for Jonathan Kuminga. And if you know anything about Kuminga, he is a highly athletic player and he can get to the rim, but he needs space. And it was just super clogged. And so what they've done recently is Jonathan Kuminga has actually been coming off the bench with Buddy Hield, and it's really helped him expand his game as of late. First couple of games were not great. Then Steph Curry goes out, and he has made some big jumps. I will say it's still not where I expected him to be. I really thought Jonathan Kuminga was going to be that second scoring option for the Warriors, maybe around like 18 to 20 points per game, and right now he's at 13.1. But I think the other thing, and I'll let you talk about Moody a little bit too, but before we go there, it's the depth of this team. Golden State has 13 players that are playing over 10 minutes a game. There's just not enough minutes or not enough like shots for everyone to go around. I mean, even Steph Curry, he's only played 5 games this season. He's only averaging 21.2 points per game. And it's not because he's not being efficient. It's solely because he's only playing 27 and a half minutes, and there are just so many people that are playing for the Golden State Warriors right now. So I think that's just kind of, there's a lot of compounding factors, but you can also see from Kuminga's play, he is trying his hardest because he wants that money, especially since he didn't get the extension.
Yeah, obviously he doesn't get that extension. He's kind of in like a prove it season right now. Do you think there's any frustration there because he's not getting? I feel like he's just not getting the amount of playing time he needs to show that he deserves it.
I agree. So they started giving him that playing time early on, and then he moved to the bench, and he made a statement about Steve Kerr, like, I'm not the coach. I was told just right before. Seemed like he was a little upset about it. Obviously, as an NBA player, especially in a prove-it year, you're wanting all the minutes you can get and to be in that starting lineup. But with the way the team's going right now and the success they've had so far, it's kind of like a if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think Kuminga's, they're not going to give him a ton of opportunities if they're winning with the amount of opportunities he's getting right now. It's a kind of a catch-22 for both of them right now in terms of being able to see what Kuminga can do because of the success. But I assume later on down the road, when we get later in the season, we might see expanded role and minutes for him.
Yeah, for sure. I guess, okay, we can circle back to this, but I'll have a question after we talk about Moses Moody real quick. So, like I said, he was my pick for most improved, which I believe he's starting. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. So,
yes,
with the switch from Kuminga going to the bench, now we have Moody starting. So, last night against the Celtics, the starting lineup was Steph, Moody, Wiggins, Draymond, and Trace Jackson Davis. So it was basically kind of like a, athletic player for more of a shooter and Moody. But even though he's starting, it's really...
He doesn't play.
He doesn't play. And the reason is Steph, with the amount of players you have, Steve Kerr goes with the hot hand. We saw it in the Golden State's win over the Houston Rockets. Like, there was Buddy Hield was hot, so he played a lot more minutes. We saw it in some of the New Orleans games. Lindy Waters, who was not playing at all in Oklahoma City last year, was the 13th man for Golden State. He came in and basically lit a fire, went off in one of those games, and then he started the next game. Like, we've already had 3-4 different starting lineups through 8 games of the season. With the depth that this team has, Steve Kerr is really just looking at who has the hot hand and who can I play around Draymond and Steph. And that's kind of how it's been going. So minutes have been a little inconsistent, but it's really just, if you're playing well, you're on the floor. If you're not playing as great, you might be sitting at night.
Here's my thing, though. I feel like Moody isn't even playing bad. Like, he's by no means playing like, I think the player they were expecting him to become. But, like, I mean, he's shooting the ball almost at 40% from three, which,
Mhm.
I mean, that's a good number to shoot from. But obviously, in only 17 minutes, he can only do so much. It's kind of surprising me that Kerr just hasn't given him a little bit more of a chance. But to his credit, he is being overshadowed by Buddy Hield playing
Yes.
26 minutes off the bench in the same position as him.
That's the thing, right? Is you have Moody in there who will start or play well, and then you bring in Buddy, and Buddy is just instant offense in this Golden State
Hmm.
like rotation and how they're playing. He is playing the Klay Thompson role, except I would argue he's moving even a little more than Klay Thompson from the 3-point line. Klay Thompson was a lot more of like, okay, let me go get a three. If it's not there, I'm going to back cut, get a layup. I mean, Buddy is constantly coming off screens, just like Steph Curry. It's like if it's not Steph, it's Buddy, and then they scream for each other. It has been crazy. And when you have Buddy Hield shooting over 50%, it's kind of like who's going to be in the game more, the guy that's almost shooting 40 or
Yep.
the guy that's playing at an insane clip and shooting 50. So again, Buddy's going to cool off. Moody's going to get more minutes. It's just a matter of time. But with the way they're playing right now, I feel like you got to keep feeding the hot hand.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm gonna circle back to this. So obviously Moody got that extension. We know he's probably gonna be on the Warriors. At least until the start of next season. I think it's pretty rare if they'll trade him. But Kaminga did not get that extension. We've talked about him. He hasn't played the best. What is his future? Is it on the Warriors or is it somewhere else?
I'm a big Kaminga fan. The only issue with Jonathan Kaminga is he still plays like he's a rookie in this league. There have been a lot of boneheaded moves that Jonathan Kaminga has made this season where it's almost lost us games. But I really do like Jonathan Kaminga. I do think he's not going to be a Warrior after this season, unfortunately. And the reason I say that is he's wanting a lot of money, like a lot of money. I believe Moody's contract was like 3 years 30 or 3 year 40 around that. And Jonathan Kaminga was looking for like 3 year 80, like something
Mm-hmm.
like really insane. And Golden State was willing to work with him a little bit, but I mean, he's wanting that max contract type of deal. And with the production that we're seeing right now from him compared to other players on this roster, I just think that Golden State's going to look at it and be like, we might as well try and go get another star rather than paying Jonathan Kuminga that money. And I think Jonathan Kuminga is going to get that money offered to him by another team that, might not be in playoff contention right now. So I'm looking at like a Brooklyn Nets, Washington Wizards type team where they think that he can blossom into that next star. That might throw a lot of money at him. I just don't know if Golden State's going to be willing to, say, okay, whatever they'll pay, we'll match it.
Yeah. The only thing I think if Kaminga wants to get paid, he'll probably have to ask for a trade because I'm not sure if there's any teams just straight up that can pay him that money. List is very short. But moving on to our next team, which we've talked about them before on the podcast. I think they had I don't know. I feel like a lot of people weren't that high on them. I know I have been.
I feel
Honestly,
like we both have.
yes, and the way they've been playing is what I've been expecting. So the team is the Phoenix Suns, 7-1. One of those teams tied up there at the top of the West. Dude, this team has been playing so well. Katie and Katie and Devin Booker are playing just at an all-time high. So Kevin Durant's almost averaging 28 points, almost 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, almost 1 steal, and almost 2 blocks a game, while shooting 42% from 3 and 62% from inside the arc. So crazy numbers from him. Devin Booker is 24.5 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists a game, and 1 steal. Obviously, they're the two alpha dogs on this team. Playing exceptionally well. I don't know. This team has just been so good. It's the team that everyone expected last year. We're seeing them this year. So Caleb, kind of, what are your thoughts right now?
Phoenix Suns at this juncture look like they might be the front runner in the West or second fiddle, but not far behind the Oklahoma City Thunder. First off, Kevin Durant, again, 8 games in, he should be in the MVP conversation. What this guy has been doing so far, he's so efficient. I mean, at his age too, playing almost 40 minutes a game, he has dropped 30 points in 5 games this season, has been very clutch. If Devin Booker's not hot, if Bradley Beal is struggling, you can always go to Kevin Durant. And I think the Suns know that. And they're kind of, last year, I feel like their offense revolved a little more around Devin Booker than Durant. It was a little 50-50, but not as much. And for this year, I mean, it has been get Kevin Durant the ball. If Kevin Durant doesn't want it, then it goes to Devin Booker. But they're making Durant a priority, and it's paying dividends with their record so far. And I do want to give Bradley Beal a quick shout out. He has been playing like a really good third option, which is what all he needs to do when you have Durant and Booker on your team. I mean, he's not been playing bad whatsoever. It's like when Durant or Booker is out, Bradley Beal goes out, and he's kind of what played and sealed some games for them as well. I just feel like this team has been doing extremely well, and the offseason moves that we talked about have been paying off. Tyus Jones, obviously Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen, and then the rookie Ryan Dunn. I mean, they built this team almost perfectly for what they had, and again, it's paying off with that 7-1 record.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to focus in on something you said. Kevin Durant should be in the MVP conversation. Obviously 8 games. This is who I had up there as well. Not sure I would say he is my clear favorite. But he's definitely close. I mean, it's not just his numbers. It's just how well he's shooting and how well he's playing defensively. This just looks like a Kevin Durant we just have not seen since like he got injured on the Warriors. Even when he was at Brooklyn, he just has not looked like this version of himself in a long time. And I think you hit it right on the nose. When this team, is offensively just kind of stagnant, Kevin Durant has been there, consistent for them. But I think you also hit it right on the nose with Royce O'Neal, Tyus Jones, and Grayson Allen. They're doing what they need to do, but they're not overstepping and trying to be something that they're not, if that makes sense. Because, Grayson Allen, obviously, I think with Bradley Beal out a lot last year, he was forced into that starting lineup, which not necessarily where Grayson Allen thrives. He definitely thrives off the bench. Now, he's only averaging 9.5 points per game. But, I mean, when you got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, you don't really need a whole lot of scoring out of anyone else. But I think a big thing from these 3 players is they're not turning the ball over a whole lot. Tyus Jones has a 6.8 assist to turnover ratio, which obviously he doesn't get the ball the most, but when he does have the ball, he protects it so well, which, is a common theme throughout his career. So I think that's huge. But then Royce O'Neal is shooting 47% from 3 on over 4 attempts a game, which is huge for this, I mean, I think Nurkic, in that starting 5 is probably your worst shooter, or I'm not going to say probably, he is the worst shooter. Having, another player who can stretch the floor with over 45% is so nice to have.
Hey, I will say, Nurkic, last night against the Heat, he hit 2 30-plus foot threes.
He did.
I mean, so that's 6 points, and they won by 3. So shout out Yusuf Nurkic. Obviously not the best player by any means or the best shooter by any means on the Phoenix Suns, but he's been playing well, especially if you look at his rebounding as of late. Past 3 games, 15 plus rebounds in each of them. I mean, that's all they need him for, right? Rebounds and defense. And then I like what you said. I want to touch on Grayson Allen real quick. We're not seeing the efficiency in terms of the percentages for Grayson Allen, but he's still averaging 9.5 points on basically 20 minutes of play. Last season, he averaged 13.5 points on 33 minutes of play. So they're still getting scoring production. They don't need as much because obviously he's not playing as much. And then the one that I want to talk about is Ryan Dunn. He has been an absolute nightmare for other teams on the defensive end. I mean, I talked about this early on when we were going through and kind of doing our predictions that I think Ryan Dunn was going to be someone that would be beneficial for the Suns. I thought it would be later in the season. We have seen it in the first 8 games of the season. I saw a cool stat about him and Royce O'Neal. So they're but basically both of them are the two of the best on-ball perimeter defenses in the NBA. Royce O'Neal is holding his offensive players that he's guarding to 33.3% field goal percentage, and Ryan Dunn is right behind him with 36.6% field goal percentage. So, I mean, they're playing absolute lockdown D. There were videos of Ryan Dunn locking down LeBron. It has just been so cool to see Ryan Dunn fill in nicely. Also shooting around 40% from three, so being serviceable on the offensive end as well. I just really like the way that this team has been gelling together and the way that this team was built in the offseason, and it's paying off.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up them holding their opponents, to around 35, 36% from the field, because Ryan Dunn really doesn't get steals or blocks. His impact is contested shots, forcing bad shots, forcing just the offensive player into not good positions. I'm sure his turnover, like him causing turnovers, is probably decently high, but he's just not the one physically getting the steal. But I think you would probably credit a lot of them because of the defense that he's playing. I do want to add, obviously, when Bradley Beal is out, his minutes have gone up. He is only averaging 15 minutes per game, but he's averaging almost 7 points and 40% from three in that time that he does get. So, he's playing efficiently. He's playing well on the defensive end. Definitely, it's looking like he is one of the biggest steals in this draft so far.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm excited to see what the Suns can do. They got a really tough matchup coming up tomorrow. I think it'll be the day you're watching this podcast, so Friday, November 8th against Dallas. That'll be really good. And then they got some easier games after that, facing Sacramento and Utah. So, I mean, honestly, you could see this team being 9-1 after 10 games, which would be a great start, and they would definitely take that. But we're going to talk about a couple of teams on the East side of the NBA that have gotten off to a really good start. And our question is the East already just a two-team race? And those teams would be the Celtics starting off now at 7-2, moving to those two losses after losing to the Warriors on Wednesday night. And then maybe the surprise of the season so far, the Cleveland Cavaliers starting off at 9-0. They actually have one of the best starts to an NBA season in the last 20 years. The only team that's had a better start was the Warriors back in the 2016 season when they won 24 straight games. But a 9-0 is nothing to to be mad at, because it definitely can get better as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, 9-0 is exceptional. I don't know. I feel like no one really expected them to be this good. I think we all kind of had them probably around the same place as they were last year, like 4, maybe 5 seed in the East. But they have come out the gate swinging. I will say it did take Donovan Mitchell hitting a incredible shot last week to, keep them undefeated. If Donovan Mitchell doesn't hit that shot, I don't think they, remain undefeated. But, he did hit it. They won. So what does not matter if he didn't hit it or not, because he did. But as I'm just kind of looking back to that question, is the East a two-man race? It's looking like it's going to be. So obviously the Bucks have a lot of issues that they need to sort out. The Magic, obviously, Paulo Banchero going down is tough. The Heat, I don't know what the heck is going on with Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. They are not playing well. The Knicks can't play defense to save their lives. And then Tyrese Halliburton, just seems he can't just consistently get back on what he was last year. And then I will say 76ers, maybe Embiid coming back can help them right the ship. But even, starting out 1-6, I know it's only 7 games, but sometimes that can be just a little hard to dig yourself out of to start competing, for these top 2 spots. So I don't know. I kind of think it's going to end up being a top 2 race. But I will say the Celtics, to me, are a very interesting team, right? I don't know, you might hate me for this, and you might say they're not even close to the same, but sometimes the way the Celtics play reminds me of the James Harden Rockets, where they want to shoot a bunch of threes, shoot layups, and that's pretty much what they do, right? Obviously, I will say I think the Celtics do have a little bit more offense than that Rockets team did. But they shoot over 53s in every game, right? So I'm going to just put a stat out there. So 7-2. And their 7 wins, they shoot 40 on average. They shoot 40.6% from 3 on 50 attempts. In each of their losses, they are averaging 55 threes a game, which this last one against the Warriors, they shot 59, I think. But they've only made 19 threes in each, which is only 32.3%. So they're shooting 8% worse in their losses, which kind of worries me because to me this says, oh, they have a bad shooting night, they're not going to win. Which when you look at contenders and teams who win the championships, even when they have bad shooting nights, they find ways to win.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The one thing I'll say about this team is, I mean, they're still missing Kristaps Porzingis, and that's the one thing that I'm holding on to. Like, they're 7-2 without one of their best players, like a top 3, maybe 4. I mean, one of the top 5 players in a starter, right, with Kristaps Porzingis. But I agree. I mean, this team is living and dying by the 3, but more often than not, they're living. They have a really good defense. I mean, in terms of like opponents' point per games, they're a top 5 defense as well. And then in the offensive category, they're a top 5 offense. I mean, this team is doing everything right. It just seems like when they get Porzingis back, they're going to be able to do a lot of things. I mean, because right now that big man, they were running out Horford there, and then they got Luke Cornett and Keita. I just feel like when you get Porzingis back, it might make it a little bit of a change there. But I agree. I mean,
what does Porzingis do? Right, he shoots threes. Porzingis doesn't play down low because his body physically can't take it.
Shot blocker though, it's going to help a little bit on the defensive end. I mean, he's better defense than Al Horford. That's my only thought. Right, is like right now you're running Al Horford out there, which is he's fine, but.
He's efficient in small amounts, but he definitely should not be playing 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this is for both teams, they have a starter out because people should remember the Cleveland Cavaliers are still missing Max Strus, which is a sharpshooter for them. And the one thing I want to touch on with the Cavaliers, because I know we've talked about the Celtics a little bit, is they have been doing this. And it's just been everyone. I mean, Donovan Mitchell has played great. Darius Garland has played great in moments. Evan Mobley has played great. Jarrett Allen. I mean, this dude is a double-double machine. You can count him up for at least 15 points, 10 boards every single game. Karis LeVert has looked good on the offensive end. And then they have other guys that they kind of bring in and out just as whoever's playing the best. I mean, they have looked really good so far. And I actually, Connor, I had a question for you. Looking at their schedule for the Cleveland Cavaliers, how many games do you think they can win? Like, how long can they stay undefeated? So I look at their schedule, and we'll just talk through a couple of them. So next game they have is at home against Golden State. That's going to be a tough one. So that's one where it's like, we'll see. I mean, they're definitely favored in that game, but that's one that we'll definitely have to think about. But then they go at home against Brooklyn, on the road against Chicago, on the road against Philadelphia, and then back home at Chicago, back home against Charlotte. I mean, they play Boston on Tuesday, November 19th, but then that's still 6 games away. I mean, realistically, this team could start 15-0 in my opinion, but I want to know what you're thinking. How long do you think this is going to last?
I mean, here's the thing. I think they probably could lose some of these games. I mean, it's the NBA. Sometimes, the freaking Brooklyn Nets are just going to beat you by 15 points, There's nothing you can do. I don't know. I'm kind of looking at that Celtics game. But I will say, man, Warriors probably will give them a run for their money tomorrow. If the Warriors keep playing like they do, I think, especially coming off that win against the Celtics, I think the Cavs should be worried about the Warriors. But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think they'll make it past the Celtics undefeated. If they do, good for them. Just not what I'm expecting, but I think I'm along with you. I'm expecting max of probably 15-0 around there. So yeah,
I agree. I think if I had to make my pick, obviously I'm going to say Golden State's going to beat him being a Warriors fan, but I'll take that out of it. I'll just say they beat the Warriors. And then I think they would beat the Nets, beat the Bulls. I think they would end up losing at Philadelphia because Joel Embiid would be back by then. So I would give them, that would make them 10, 11, 12 and 0 to start the season, which again would be a great start.
Even with Tyrese Maxey out?
I think you got Joel Embiid and you got Paul George at Philadelphia. They're going to need a win. I mean, yeah. Philadelphia is struggling so far. I just feel like Philadelphia has a lot more to play for than the Cavaliers at that point.
Very true. 76ers need to do something, man. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not sure if you answered it. I know I did. I think the East definitely is probably going to come down to these two teams. I think we saw last year is pretty much the Celtics and everyone else, and obviously it was right because they won the championship pretty easily. So what are you thinking? It's a two-team or no?
I would tend to agree. I think some of these other teams are going to get back on track, and definitely the standings are going to change, but we're 9 games into the season, and there's already a 2-game difference between first, second, and the rest of the East. I think that's going to continue. And I could see it to where we get to the end of the season, we're seeing the Cavaliers and the Celtics battling it out for that 1 seed, and everyone else is just trying to stay afloat between the 3 and the 10 to make it into the playoffs and at least the play-in.
Yeah, the West is looking pretty similar at the current moment. You got the Suns, Thunder, and Warriors atop, and then you got a lot of teams hovering around 500 right now. Also, shout out the Rockets being the number 4 seed technically right now because they got the tiebreaker above the Mavs. But yeah, no, I mean, definitely some exciting stuff. I think there's a lot of good games coming up. Obviously, some pretty incredible players I think we talked about. But brings us into our final session of the podcast. It's a new section that we added today, and it's going to be a standout of the week. So Caleb and I each have a person in mind. It can be a player, a coach, or someone in the front office, but it's essentially anyone who had like an exceptional moment, game, or like a particular play this week. So Caleb, are you ready, or do you want me to go first?
I'm ready. I can go.
All
right. So for my standout of the week, I got 2. One's a little less serious and the other one's more serious. So the less serious one, my standout of the week is shout out to the dudes that were sitting next to the Golden State Warriors bench at the Celtics game the other night. They were all sporting Jason Tatum Team USA jerseys, rocking the number 10. And every single time they would pan over to the bench, they were standing up and yelling at Steve Kerr. It was great to see. So y'all are my standouts of the week. You helped the Warriors get that win, but also it provided a lot of comedic relief. So I did like that. So
I didn't even see that. That's funny.
Yeah, it was great. But okay, my actual standout of the week. He's had some really good games, but this is more for exceptional moments and plays. So it's been Ja Morant. I don't know if you saw his pair of 360 layups the other night, but they were some of the most athletic finishes I have seen in the NBA. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. We know Ja Morant as being, one of, if not the most athletic players in the NBA, but you don't see someone do 360 layups all that much. And he did that not once, but twice against the Brooklyn Nets the other night. And then also to go on top of that, it just kind of was a 2-for-1. Shout out to Ja Morant for also taking it at LeBron James in the Los Angeles Lakers the other night. So Ja Morant finished on Gabe Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers and hit him with the too small. And then LeBron James went back and finished on Ja Morant and basically like got down really low and did too small as well. And then Ja Morant basically came back, finished on LeBron, and then like bowed up on him. He got a technical for it, but you love to see it. It was really cool to see Ja Morant just kind of going off on the Lakers.
That Lakers-Grizzlies rivalry is so weird to me.
It's weird, but it's really chippy
But
every time they play.
It makes for exciting basketball. Obviously, I think the Grizzlies ended up running away with it. But honestly, not even a player I was thinking about. But I mean, I think that's an amazing one. Him with that John Wall specialty 360 layups.
It really did.
Right.
It looked just like John Wall, but to be honest, he even put like some jelly on it. Like it was insane.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So for mine, which I was I was neck and neck with two people. But the one I decided to go with for my standout of the week is going to be the rookie #1 pick, Zachary Risacher. Last night for the Hawks, he dropped 33 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. By far and large, the best game we have seen from a rookie. Dude, this rookie class has been taking a beating on people saying this is the weakest draft, which, to be fair, so far in this season, they've been looking like the worst draft in a long time. Obviously, Risacher has not liked that talk. He's played well. Ended up having an exceptional game. But I will say one player that I had right underneath him is going to be Nikola Jokic against the Thunder last night. Sorry, Thunder fans. Sorry, my wife. But he had 23 points, 20 rebounds, 16 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals on the Thunder to lead the Nuggets over the undefeated Thunder team. Nuggets, especially Jokic, looking good the past few games, so I had to give him a shout out as well.
Okay, and your shout out just made me think of one more person. But before I say him, I want to say Zachary Risacher, you are shutting me up. You are actually playing pretty well for the rookie class that we have right now. If you look at his past couple of games, he's been playing a lot of minutes. I mean, he's playing like 30 minutes for the Hawks. He's actually in the starting lineup. He's been shooting it decent from 3. It's just been it's been a pleasant surprise for me. So, congrats to you, Zach. You are definitely making me kind of swallow my words a little bit from earlier.
You know who's a rookie who has not looked good that we all expected to probably be rookie of the year is Dalton Connect. He has not looked too hot so far.
They don't give him a chance. Give him a chance, JJ. You don't like D'Lo now. I don't know if you saw that, but he benched D'Lo after basically no effort. But put Dalton Connect in there. Let's see what Connect 4 can do. But the one guy I real quick want to shout out before we hop out of here is Domantas Sabonis. Connor, he had, I don't know if you saw, but he had maybe the perfect game. And let me explain. Okay. He's one of, I believe, 5 people to do this. I want to say, but don't quote me on that. He had 17 points, 13 assists, 11 rebounds, 1 steal, 0 turnovers. Sounds like, okay, he had a triple-double. It's a pretty good game. All right, listen to this, okay? From the field, he was 6 for 6, shot 100%. From the free throw line, he was 5 for 5, shot 100%. This dude didn't miss a shot. He didn't turn the ball over, and he finished with a triple-double and a steal. I mean, maybe you could score more or do something else, but that might be the perfect game. So that's a pretty impressive stat line. Shout out to you, Sabonis.
Hey, Sabonis is a good player, man. Definitely, obviously not quite as good, but he definitely shows a little resemblance to a left-handed Jokic at times. But
I agree.
But yeah.
I agree. All right. Well, I think that is all that we have for today. Thank you so much if you're watching it on YouTube or if you're listening to it on a podcast. But we really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the video. Or again, if you're on one of the podcast platforms, give us a 5-star rating. Again, we really appreciate it. Let us know in the comments if you have any thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And again, this is Courtside. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.